episode 6 of CueBall's Bearded Rambles. And today I have a very special guest. He's a personal friend of mine. This is Laurie from Brightr, who I've been mentioning a couple of times on my live feed. I've been really looking forward to speaking to Laurie, get to know him a bit more, because we haven't been able to get to know him properly because of the whole lockdown shit.
Yeah.
So how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you, man. It's lockdown's taken a new turn the last few days with the massive heat wave. So that's been sort of lock and cook down, which has been a little bit extreme. But yeah, all good, man. How are you?
I am living the lockdown dream. No, just being me, being CueBall, pretty much.
Fair play, fair play.
Should we get into it? Should we get into the juicy conversation?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so I'm going to start off with the question I ask every single person because it's a good introduction, I think. So, how and why did you get into the music scene?
I started playing. I guess I started writing songs and wanting to do something in music when I was as young as like 6, 7 years old. I started writing these odd little songs. There's a lot of lyrics and things written at my parents' house that were just kind of like strange songs. When I look back on them now, they're just the oddest rhyming things. I think it was where we were told to start learning how to write poetry, and then I wanted to write songs. And because all the bands I was into at the time were somewhere between sort of slimy, grimy metal bands and grunge bands, I was like writing these really dark songs for a seven-year-old. So that was kind of the beginning, I guess. But when I actually wanted to get into things seriously, I was about 11 years old when I picked up a bass guitar and started learning the bass. Purely because I wanted a guitar, but my parents at the time didn't have the money to buy me a guitar. So I ended up getting this really cheap bass from a charity shop for like a tenner, and then learning how to change the pickups in it and make it good. And then basically set about learning every single Red Hot Chili Peppers song that I could, and every single Tool song. So basically just like got really kind of mad good for that age at playing bass. And then that led on into me kind of not getting bored with playing bass, but getting to a point where I was like, I wanted a different challenge. And so I picked up my mom's guitar. My mom was always a musician, but in a Christian musician, so Christian music and doing all that kind of stuff. So I thought it would be the ultimate kind of blasphemous thing if I pick up her guitar like every so often when she's not around and write some of these really dark songs on her guitar. So I kind of taught myself to play guitar, and then it just led on from there, really. In terms of actually doing it as a serious thing and touring as a musician and trying to really make things fun, I don't think I ever wanted to necessarily catapult myself into the music industry. Like intentionally, it wasn't like a thought. It was more, I wanted to travel around and have fun. And at the time, all the people that I knew were traveling around and having fun in the Eastbourne music scene where I'm from originally. Like there were bands coming out of that scene and going off traveling, and they were friends of mine, or people that were friends of friends, and they all just seemed to be having this really cool time getting to travel around, see the world, and go and play Reading and Leeds Festival and stuff like that. Or at the time it was just Reading Festival. But I kind of wanted to get into that side of it, the adventure side of it. And I've been in and out of bands for so long now. Like the first band I was ever in was when I was about 12 years old. And then I kind of just went in and out of bands. Then the first proper serious band you could call was Serious was when I was 14. And that was when I went on my first proper UK tours and my first European tours. So, and then ever since then, really, I've gone from being in bands to obviously becoming a solo musician, a good 5 years ago now. So yeah, long-winded answer, but I kind of just stumbled through life into music. And I guess I just, over the years, I found it to be this cool kind of cathartic thing to be a part of. So it's almost like an addiction now, being part of it, you know?
Yeah, I can totally, what's the word, relate to the whole addiction thing. It's the same with wrestling, you know? It's almost like when you've done it, I've always said wrestling is like a drug. So you can do it for a couple of years. You can try being the main word, try and go away from it, but you always end up going back because it's addictive. And by the sounds of things, it's the same with music, you know.
Yeah, I think there's a huge correlation really between wrestling and music, the two industries, because obviously, I mean, they're both entertainment industries, but it's in the sense of the amount of passion and the amount of hard work that has to go into it. I mean, obviously, in my case, it's a writing side of effort that has to go into everything. A lot of writing, a lot of practicing. But I mean, to a degree, that's the same in wrestling, like with storylines and things, and with just in the terms of training and everything else. So it's the same level of dedication that goes into the two. And I think, you know, that ultimately it does have sort of a real addictive thing, like that makes you not really want to leave doing it. You fear leaving doing it because you think that in a second it could actually be, that could be like the next cool thing is coming along. I don't know, that sort of vibe.
Yeah, I completely get you on that one. There was a time, so before I met Terry, my wife, I wrestled beforehand, and I stopped wrestling for a bit for personal reasons, and it comes to the point where I couldn't actually watch wrestling anymore because I was just really, I needed to start doing it again, but I just personally I couldn't do it, and I just sort of almost had a bit of a hate towards wrestling because I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, ever since I've been back, you know, being CueBall, absolutely loved everything I've been doing. You know, I've not done everything that you've done, you know, because you know, as far as I'm concerned, I think what you're doing is absolutely fantastic. You know, the fact you've been able to get out of the UK, go around the world, tour the world is amazing, absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
We're going to the next question. So it is. So you've mentioned that 2020 was supposed to be your last year doing Brightr.
Yeah.
Why was that? Is there any reason why?
I've been doing this now for 5 years. I've been doing Brightr, and Brightr was never, when I started Brightr, in a way, I came to the end of the band that I was in what was it? It must have been middle of 2014. I called time on a band that I'd been in for years, and it was mostly because the guys in that band just weren't trying anymore. They weren't dedicated anymore. They just wanted to be famous. They always talked about wanting to be famous, and it was this drive to be famous rather than wanting to actually really put in any kind of work to do stuff. And so when I came out of that band, I had this real disillusioned feeling of stuff, and I ended up taking a few months out, which drove me a little bit nuts, really, because during that time I had nothing to put, I guess, my emotions into and everything else. So I ended up writing songs purely from a cathartic place to deal with stuff that I'd gone through over the last few months, I guess. And from that, Brightr kind of became a thing, but only because I showed some of those early demos that I'd done of early songs to a friend of mine called Matt O'Grady, who's the guy that recorded my album, and he's also recorded lots of really big bands. He's been a friend of mine for a long time, and he turned around and kind of encouraged me to release the songs, was really encouraging about the quality of the songs, and said, dude, this is going to be the biggest thing you've done. You have to get out and do something with this. So I was like, well, I didn't, you know, I sort of took it with a pinch of salt, and I thought that's really nice, but, you know, yeah, okay, I'll put out a release, I'll see what happens. And so I, you know, obviously 5 years later, I'm still doing it, and it's basically been the most successful musical thing that I've done in the whole time. So, so 5 years of doing Brightr, when it was really just intended to be a personal project, if you will. But it's more been one of these things that touring is very hard in terms of, I have 2 small children and obviously my wife at home. I've recently, in the last year, taken on an actual full-time job, whereas before I was picking up shifts on an agency basis whenever I was home from tour. So everything worked around Brightr and everything worked around my tour schedule. So I guess I kind of got to a point, it was the tail end of last year, where I was just thinking about the fact that the kids are growing up, that they're coming up to various milestones, educational milestones, life milestones, all these things, and just thinking, is it fair for me to be sort of gallivanting away to play shows when there's these important things coming up? And do I need to, like, in the sense of, are there any things that I haven't achieved that I still really want to achieve? Is there anything on the bucket list, if you will, that I still want to achieve with Brightr? And I kind of sat down and had that conversation with myself. And I thought, well, no, like, I achieved everything that I wanted to achieve with Brightr in the first few months of doing it. Like, I put out a record, it sold really well, people liked it. I went out and I toured all around Europe, I toured all around the UK. People liked what I was doing. People not only liked what I was doing, but they were connecting with what I was doing. And I was feeling like it had this importance of having a positive effect on people and this positive connection. So kind of from that, like, I achieved everything I wanted to just in that respect. And then, of course, in 2016, after I got married, it was also the year where I was touring the most. And I played over, I think it was 165 shows that year. Played over in America, played all over Europe, obviously toured around the UK, toured around Ireland. Just like had this really mad year, like released an album. The album did really well, like, in terms of press, in terms of all that stuff. And I guess it's one of those things, like, looking at it, I thought, you know what, I don't want the thing to happen that I've seen happen to other people's bands and projects, where they either announce they're going on hiatus, which was a classic for a while. It used to be a joke in amongst the music industry of like, oh, the band's gone on hiatus, because there's only 2 reasons why a band will go on hiatus. It's either, one of them, I don't know, they're going off because their partner's having a baby, or maybe someone in the band is having a baby and they maybe go off for that reason. Or the trivial kind of reason for people going off on a hiatus is so that they can then come back a couple of years later and be more popular, because they've had that downtime in the middle. It's a record label trick in a way. I was encouraged to go on a hiatus a few years ago, even, because it would kind of like, you go away and then you build up this cult status because no one can see you. Do you know what I mean? It was like, so I kind of thought, I don't want to do that. I don't want to pull the thing that I've kind of laughed at over the years. And I had no desire to kind of just call time on it in January with no, having not kind of said goodbye to it. I feel like after 5 years of being in a relationship with this music, I've kind of felt like I should give it a send-off that would be proper. So I talked it out with my wife. I said to her that I've been thinking about all of this stuff. And I basically said, look, the end of this year, it will be the 31st of December will literally be the end. I even joked about shaving off the beard as some sort of ultimate thing. But the thing is, that's not going to happen, because I realized whenever I do shave, I absolutely hate the way that my face looks. But so that's not going to happen. But I kind of joked about it just with this idea of bookending the whole project. And then, of course, COVID-19 came along.
Yeah.
A lot of plans. I had a lot of plans this year, just like everybody else. A lot of stuff booked, a lot of cool stuff. But you know, this has come along and it's derailed everything. It's kind of opened doors, different doors, like the whole online shows thing. It's been kind of fun. It's been nice to see people surviving in it with like that. But ultimately, I got to a point where a few weeks back, I turned around to friends and I said, "Is it going to look like bad if I do a big U-turn on the whole end of the year, like, and extend for another year?" And all of my friends were like, "No, no, this is perfect news. You've got to extend. We've got to do a tour, you know." So I talked to that with Natalie, and before I'd even really brought up the whole conversation, she said, "Yeah, of course. You know, I just assumed you'd go on another year because you haven't had the time to give this like a proper kind of goodbye in a way." I mean, it's never been that Natalie's never encouraged me to quit doing Brightr. It's been very much a sole decision. And one of the things when you're a one-man band, or you know, a person that's the sole entity in what you're doing, I guess, is you've only got yourself to run ideas by. And that can sometimes be good because, you know, if I want to play a show, I can just go and play a show. But that can sometimes be bad in the sense of if you're umming and ahhing with things. And obviously, there's a lot of emotion connected to doing Brightr. So, but yeah, so that's why I'm continuing until the end of 2021. And hopefully nothing will get in the way of that and derail that. But like, you know, that's the plan anyway.
Well, hopefully you'll be able to go on to next year and do the final tour of Brightr.
That's the plan. Lots of big plans for next year, and I think now, you know, that it in a way it's kind of made me plan bigger. So because I know, like, oh, you know, I'm going to continue into next year. I'm going to do this. Whatever happens with the rest of this year will happen. But next year, there's big plans on the horizon for stuff, you know. So it's more fun.
That's interesting. We have to keep an eye on that then, won't we? Yeah, that's actually really interesting. It's good to know. You know, the thing I loved, obviously me and Terry, we tuned into most of your, well, actually all of your live performances you've been doing on Facebook and Instagram. It's nice to see that you've stuck around whilst this COVID-19 is happening, because there's a lot of, like in my circumstances, there's a lot of wrestlers who, because this COVID-19 malarkey is happening, they've gone off the face of the earth. They've just stopped what they're doing. And personally, I think it's like I said to a lot of the guys, I think it's important that as entertainers, we should still be entertaining our fans.
Yeah.
And you know, like I said, from what you're doing, I completely respect what you're doing. It's amazing to see that you're still doing it, and it's just great. It's nice to see that you're still doing stuff just because there's COVID-19 stuff going on. When you could have easily just went, no, do you know what? This is my last year. That's completely my last year. It's nice to see that you want to carry on going into next year. Well,
yeah, but it was like there were a few things as well that kind of initially prompted me to do a sort of a U-turn, because I was meant to be playing. I was asked ages ago to play at a new festival called Broadstone Festival that was meant to be on in June. In fact, yeah, I think it was meant to be June 5th and 6th. And it was going to be the first year of that festival. And the people that were running that, they got in touch with me middle of last year to ask me if I wanted to be part of this new festival. And kind of, they were like, "Oh, you're one of the first acts we want to add to the lineup. They saw me at 2000 Trees, and they kind of had this real positive buzz." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I can't wait for this festival." And then when everything happened with this, and all of their hard work over the last year kind of derailed, so they had to call it off. The first thing I said was, "Well, I'm meant to be kind of done and dusted next year, but I'll do a sort of a resurrection, and I'll come back just for your festival. You know, if you're rescheduling, I will, you know, book me in." So I had it kind of in my mind of I'm going to just appear again and just do this festival. But then as other things started getting cancelled and things, you know, that sort of starts happening, you start to realize, I think one of the things I really realized, like, as humble as it might sound, and it's completely genuine, I didn't realize just how much people cared about what I'm doing. I tour a lot, and I have people come to shows, and I have reactions from people at shows, and I connect with people at shows, and I talk to people after shows, and build up these connections with fans or friends, you know. But I never realized until all of this just how important my music has been to lots of people, and that's been kind of a cool thing. So in that respect, I kind of felt like continuing on another year and actually ending things properly on my terms would be kind of, you know, the only way to go, really. It's not like we had anything imminent that was making me want to walk away. It's more just one of those life things where I didn't want everything to fizzle out. I didn't want to kind of get to a point where I'm like trying to divide my time and then just like focusing heavily on family stuff and therefore completely fizzling Brightr without meaning to, or focus too much on Brightr and essentially put my family second. So I didn't want to get to that. I wanted to make it more of a statemented thing, so people know, you know, they know that if I'm coming on a big old tour around wherever, that could well be the last one that I do. So, you know, let's have some fun now. You know, that kind of vibe. You know, that was kind of the thing, really. And I think going into 2021, it's going to be bigger and better to a degree. I've got lots of places since the COVID situation, and obviously being able to play shows here in my kitchen for people has actually kind of, don't want to say raised the profile of what I'm doing, but in a way it has put me in the place, it put me in the faces of other people that maybe weren't in contact with my music before.
Mm-hmm.
So from that, I've had a lot of offers to tour in other random places where I haven't been to before. So that's going to be, you know, pretty cool if that works.
Oh, that's awesome, man. It's like I said, you know, you just keep on going. You just got to keep on going, and you know, like it's happened to you. You've been found by different, I guess would you call them promoters?
Yes. Yeah. Other promoters and yeah.
So yeah, because Laurie has actually carried on what he's doing during his COVID-19, he's actually getting bookings somewhere else. Fantastic, which is what this is all about, isn't it? Really, to a point, you know. So this is something that we love doing. We love entertaining our fans, and this gives us all the opportunity to make more fans.
Yeah.
But is that right in saying?
Yeah, completely, man. Well, like that's exactly what I'm saying. I've enjoyed following all of the video stuff that you've been putting out. All the video content has been entertaining and fun. And like you were saying earlier, like a lot of other wrestlers and people have just disappeared off the side of the cliff during the time. But it's nice to see the effort being put in, whether it's you've wanted to carry it on or whether it's a good thing to keep you busy or whatever it's for. Like, it's been really good. It's been really entertaining, man. It's been cool.
I'll be honest with you. So the reason why I started doing this, it wasn't for my sake. It was actually for kind of everybody's sake, if you will.
Yeah.
There's a lot of negativity going around, and even more so with this pandemic. So I thought, well, I want to use my page, if you will, be able to just put a smile on somebody's face, just, you know, so if that means by making myself look like a dick, which is what I've been doing, and it makes people laugh, then to me, as far as I'm concerned, I'm doing the right thing. You know, I've enjoyed doing videos with my kids. You know, my wife's been recording them. Yeah. Thank you, Terry, if you're listening. You know, but yeah, it's just what it is. You know, it's just to create positivity, and you know, thankfully, it's gone down well. Yeah.
You know.
The next question, is to do with gigging around the world. So what would you, if you can say, you know, if you can pinpoint, where is your favorite place you have performed?
Oh, so that's a difficult one. I have performed in lots of really cool places. I think it's see, I would never base my favorite place to perform. I would never base on necessarily maybe a venue or any of the stuff connected with the show. I would more say I like vibes at different places, and the vibes of the crowds and stuff like that. And in that respect, the shows that I've played in Switzerland have been incredible. The fans who are basically friends now. It's a beautiful little city in the mountains by Lake Lucerne, and I played my second Brightr show. I played there. It's a long story. I basically, because I in between doing other stuff back in the day before Brightr, I was a tour manager, and I tour managed a big UK punk band. So I did a lot of stuff, met a lot of cool people, had a lot of contacts, all this kind of stuff. When I started doing Brightr and I put out some demos, some friends of mine that were in Lucerne, one of them happened to be a promoter and the other happened to be like running an agency. They were both quite young guys, only early 20s, but they were doing these cool things. And they picked up on my early demos and they were like, dude, like, we just thought you were like this cool guy, this cool tour manager. Didn't realize you were a musician. Do you want to come over and play the show we're organizing? So I said, well, I haven't even played a show yet, you know, I with Brightr. And they're like, no, you know, fly over, we'll pay you. I think in the end it was something like, they offered to pay me something like 500 euros and cover my flights. So I was like, yeah, you know, come over, have a weekend and have some fun.
Yeah.
And it was like this mad sort of thing because I thought, well, I haven't even played a first show doing Brightr yet. Obviously, I'd done a lot of shows with bands and stuff before, but this was a solo thing. Is completely different. And so I flew over. It's only my second show, and I remember hand printing a load of T-shirts. I took over some weird number of T-shirts, something like 28 T-shirts or something, because I was hand printing them. And I took over like 28 T-shirts and maybe 100 CDs that I'd handmade. Because I thought, well, I'll just take them anyway. And they won't sell, but I'll take them anyway. And then I'll have a bunch when I come back, because I've got some shows when I come back. So I went over there to do the show, and I ended up selling out of all my stuff before I'd even got on the stage. I got there and realized that they put me down to headline the show because it was a whole day of bands from around Switzerland, Austria, and Germany. So they put me at the top of this bill, like Brightr there with like UK in brackets. The show sold out in like a 500 cap venue. Show sold out. And it was just like, just this mad, mind-blowing experience. But it wasn't that, I suppose, that makes it necessarily my favorite place to play. It was the next show after that, because that was mind-blowing and crazy and a crazy experience. But I went back to that venue. Oh no, it wasn't that venue. It was back to Lucerne, but it was at another venue. The first venue was called Tree House. The second venue is called Seddle, which, if I remember rightly, was like an abandoned prison where they built a new prison. There was this old prison up on the top of a hill, and they had turned half of this prison into a venue. So nice. All the backstage of the stage, all the backstage area where you would they had bunks there and places to sleep, so all the bands would stay there. But that still had prison bars everywhere and stuff. It was really fun and cool. But the vibe there, like bearing in mind that Seddle was a bigger venue capacity-wise than Tree House, I went back there to play a show with a band called Prawn from the United States and Hindsight, who we were all friends, and we happened to be at that venue playing a show on the 4th of July. So obviously for the guys from the States, it was like this huge thing. We had fireworks and stuff. We were setting fireworks off really irresponsibly and just being a bit silly. But the vibe at this show, incredible. Like, I remember, because I was first on the lineup because I was the only acoustic act, and then my friends Hindsight's a band from the UK. They've recently, they split up a few years back, and then Prawn headlining. So I was going on first, and I wasn't expecting to get much of a reaction from the crowds because they were all coming to watch Prawn because it was this huge thing that Prawn were over, and I'd managed to facilitate getting them over. And it was like, I wasn't expecting much, but with all the shows that preceded the Lucerne show, I had really good reactions from the crowd. So I was really like, oh, wow, that's really cool. People are actually paying attention and there's this really lovely vibe. Even though I'm like the first on, they're all like having a really nice time. But when we played in Lucerne, I was on first and I got this mad reaction. Like I was the headliner. Like I played, everyone was singing along in the room. There was this wild reaction. And I remember it coming off stage, and the guys from Prawn, who we built up a really good friendship by this point, they were really like, they were just like, oh my God, man, like, you how do we follow that? And they kept saying, how do we follow that? And I was like, well, easily, because you're a band, and you're Prawn, and you're really good. And it was this real vibe. And then Hindsights went on after me, and they got like a really good reaction, but it was obvious and tangible. The whole vibe in this room was so different and crazy, like when I played. So I guess from that, it was probably one of the shows where I was most blown away. And in terms of a place, it's beautiful. And we went swimming in a lake in the afternoon before the show, went swimming in Lake Lucerne, and just like the whole community around there was really fun. So in terms of favorite places to play, I'd probably say Lucerne is up there as like one of the favorites, definitely.
Nice. Oh, that's cool. That's awesome. Again, that's awesome, man. It's it's really cool listening to all your stuff because, like I said, we haven't been able to really kind of connect properly like we all want to at the moment. So being able to do this with you is actually awesome. Kind of marking out a little bit, if you will, as I say. So going on to your goals after lockdown. What would you like to do after lockdown?
Yeah, I'm going to be, obviously, nobody knows when all of this madness is going to end, really. So I had a lot of different plans that were meant to be happening at various points this year that I've had to either just postpone or, well, just move to next year. But I think ultimately, whenever lockdown is lifted and we can travel, the first thing I want to do is get around and do like a UK tour, play at some of the venues that have been so kind of close to my heart over the years of touring, and try and do what I can to bring people back to venues watching live music and whatever, because a lot of those venues are really struggling. So I think the first thing that I want to really do is try and organize a decent UK tour with some other mates and try and just get out and do some cool stuff like that. Obviously, when we can fly and we can travel again, I have outstanding shows that I need to play over in Ireland. I have, at the moment, I still have plans in to go to the USA in late October, going into November, to tour and then to play at a festival called The Fest. But it's kind of, I'm still crossing my fingers and remaining quite positive on everything, but the way everything's bleak outcomes and whatever, it's still looking like October might not really be okay anywhere. Yeah. So, pinch a salt and whatever. But in terms of future plans, 2021 is, I guess, the big planning year. So my plan is to tour out in Canada with some friends. I'm going to be touring out in the States. I'm going to be doing a bunch of various tours in mainland Europe and catching up with some friends there. Hitting Italy again for another tour there, hopefully playing Bayfest again, which was on the cards for this year again, but it'll work out quite well for next year. And in terms of, away from touring, I've been planning to put out split records with a ton of friends for so long now. So there's like lots of different friends who are other musicians and artists that I'm like, yeah, let's do a split. So I've got all these like things written in my notes on my phone, like do a split with this guy, write a song for this, do a little whatever. So I'm hoping to like put out a lot of split releases. But on top of everything, I figure as I'm going to continue for another year, it makes sense to finally release a new album. So I'm going to be releasing year 2 at some point next year. I've already organised going in to record it, and I've started writing songs for it. So it will be finally putting out an album, second album, because obviously year 1, first album, finally putting out a second album. A few years overdue, but you know, it's all good.
Later than never, innit? So, yeah, you've heard it. Brightr will be bringing out a new album at some point. So that's cool. Year 2. Nice. So, at the moment, you and a couple of your friends have organised a bit of an online gig.
Yes.
It's in aid of saving our venues. Is that right?
Yeah, well, the Music Venue Trust have basically launched an initiative from, I can't remember when it was, in April, possibly April the 23rd or something like that. They launched an initiative to basically try and fundraise for hundreds of venues all at the same time. But it coincided with the amount of money that the government had given to venues to survive. Basically, they gave a certain amount of millions, and that money only lasted until the 23rd of April. And then literally is gone. Because money that it costs to run venues is obviously, it's a lot of money. And I think the British government haven't got a lot of grasp on the amount of money that the music industry actually makes and the amount that it actually costs to keep things going on the grassroots level, So the Music Venue Trust started this initiative to try and fundraise on a mass scale for like hundreds of venues across the UK. One of which being Le Pub in Newport. So I used to go to the old Le Pub. I used to play at the old Le Pub a ton of times before I even moved to Wales. When I was at university in Treforest, I used to come down to Newport and go to Le Pub for shows, as well as TJ's back in the day. But it's one of those venues that it's local, it's close to my heart in the sense of grassroots venues are so important to touring bands, and they're so important to up and coming acts in areas, and like not even just the local area bands and people coming through. They're important because me personally, like I cut my teeth touring. I had this crazy mindset when I was a teenager, I guess, of like, saying to my bandmates, whenever I was in all of my bands, I would turn around and say, let's not play our first show in our hometown. Let's play our first show in Touch the Map, wherever. Let's play our first show in Manchester. Let's get a show in Manchester. And they go, what? No, but then we won't have any of our friends there. And I'd say precisely. Because we can go and play a show there and get a real reaction from people. And then from that, we'll know if we're actually, we're good or we're rubbish. Like we can actually like gauge things on a proper level, go there and be ourselves and perform. Because I don't know if you must get it the same with wrestling to a degree. Like if I perform in front of just say a room of my friends, then yes, I still play the songs the same way. Yes, I still play the songs with the same level of emotion and strength that I would normally. But in terms of talking in between songs, in terms of stories, in terms of all of that, you get a bit derailed because you've got your friends in the room who I have no issue being open and emotional and bold in front of my friends. But I think sometimes with certain things, it just derails things and it makes you take a different path. So maybe you're a bit more jokey, maybe you're a bit more jovial and silly than you would be at another show. So in my respect with Brightr, it's like it's better for me to play shows away doing things. And so venues like Le Pub was so important for me as a touring artist back when I was in bands, and the same for Brightr, because although it is now my hometown venue, because I've lived here for a long old time, so it's my hometown place, playing there still feels like a tour show because I have all these memories of playing the shows for Sam as it being a tour show. so I still treat it as such, and I still step up my game. And I, you know, even if there's friends, even if Natalie's there, even if friends of mine are there or work colleagues, it's still a show. It's a tour show. So I still have that feeling. And I think venues, these grassroots venues, are so vastly important. And without them, you won't have anyone come through. You know, you just won't have, the music industry will die a death. Like, we're already shutting our borders to a degree and making it very difficult for artists to go over to mainland Europe to perform. I mean, next year is going to be really difficult for me. It's going to be a big sneaking game, because next year is when the idea of visas and stuff comes in for playing over in mainland Europe, you know, with Brexit. So protecting our grassroots venues in the UK is vital, you know. I'm going to bow out at the end of 2021, but I want my kids, if they form bands, to be able to play shows in the local area. And not even just shows, there's comedy stuff that goes on there, the DJ events, there's everything. You know, I just think having those little hubs of community are so important. So yeah, so we put this show together. Well, I say we. I decided I wanted to put a show together. I contacted a bunch of friends that have played at Le Pub that I know like Le Pub and are fond of the place. And yeah, we're going to see if we can try and bring a bit of attention to them and try and raise their profile a bit to raise some money. So that's kind of the vibe, really.
Good idea. I love the idea. So when is that? When is this going to be happening?
It is, what day is it today? Sunday. It's next Saturday, so the 30th of May, from 3 p.m. until 8 p.m. So a nice little kind of time to get things done. There's 9 artists playing, including me. I'm going to go on first at 3 o'clock, purely because I can just open things up and chat about stuff and make it kind of a fun beginning. And then, yeah, and then a load of my friends will be playing after that every half hour. So
nice. Yeah, so me and Terry will be definitely watching that for you guys, supporting you guys as well. Is that on Facebook, Instagram?
That's be on Instagram. It's going to be on the Le Pub Instagram. So I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure if you literally just type in Le Pub into Instagram, it comes up straight away with their Instagram page. We're going to be going off their page. So yeah, it'll be good.
Yeah, that sounds cool, man. So yeah, next Saturday on Instagram, live from 3 till 8. Laurie and a couple of his boys will be playing a live gig in aid of to save our venues. Should be freaking awesome. So, see where me and my wife have been watching a lot of your videos, your live videos. Sorry, you've brought up mental health a fair bit.
Yeah.
So if you want to answer this question, that's fine. If you don't, again, it's completely fine, because I know sometimes it can be a bit of a touchy subject for obvious reasons. But why is supporting mental health really so important to you?
I had a very, I suppose, difficult childhood, like tough beginnings, like most, like lots of people do. And I kind of grew up in an environment with a parent struggling with mental health issues. And as a child, I suppose you can go one of two ways with that. I could either have kind of blamed all the harsh things that happened as I was growing up on that, and then sort of pushed against it and tried to rebel and, like, you know, hate the world and blame everybody else for shit stuff and just get really kind of, I don't know, fall down a hole. Or I could go the other way and sort of have compassion and understanding and try and help people with the knowledge that I've built up from the bad experiences that I had. So I obviously went the other way, in the sense of I've been working as a support worker, as a mental health support worker since I was 18 years old. So since I could legally be in support work, that is the job that I've done. And I've worked my way up. I've worked in all different fields of my profession. I've worked with lots of different people, ranging from young to old to incarcerated to, you know, everywhere really. And I find myself now, I'm working in a job role, working in a wet house environment. So I work with people with severe addictions alongside mental health issues that are either causing those addictions or kind of exacerbating them. And to be honest, like, you know, I've struggled up and down with my own things over the years. I was diagnosed with something called body dysmorphia or body dysmorphic disorder when I was a teenager, which was seen at the time as a reason for why I became severely anorexic, and kind of got to a point of anorexia where I suppose it was, well, when I suppose really about it, it was incredibly dangerous and could have been potentially fatal for me at the time. And in trying to kind of piece things back together after that, it was established in a way by professionals at the time that I had body dysmorphic disorder or body dysmorphia, but it's made more and more and more sense over the years that was the kind of the thing that was that had caused me so many problems. And it's become more apparent over the years that that's something that will just continue with me throughout my entire life. Like, it's body dysmorphia is I suppose the best way to describe it or to put it is like living in a strange hall of mirrors, whereby some days I can look at my reflection, feel completely 100% comfortable, see my reflection exactly how it is and how other people see me, and be fine. But that feeling, that perception will just suddenly change for absolutely no reason. Like, sometimes it's not down to my mood, it's not down to me having a sudden worry or having an anxiety attack or, I don't know, being tired or something. It's not down to anything like that. It's just that my brain will suddenly trigger another picture. And so what I then see 2 seconds later in a reflection is completely different, which then, of course, triggers the anxiety, triggers the worry. It used to be that I would, obviously as a teenager, it used to be that I would see that I was vastly overweight when actually I was, you know, under 5 stone. And, you know, I'm 6'4", so it's not a healthy weight to be, really. But it used to be all weight-based when I was young, and that all came about from mental, psychological abuse, emotional abuse, whatever you call it, whatever you want to call it, from childhood, that led me to a space where I guess my brain became damaged, my perception became damaged, and that's what's now called body dysmorphia. So I'm at a point where my perception is still vastly off. But these days, because I've kind of got my worries, my irrational brain-led worries about my weight under control, and I'm quite comfortable with my size, and I'm quite comfortable with who I am in that respect. Maybe becoming a father helped with that. It stopped me. I didn't have the time to worry about that stuff anymore, you know. Like,
Yeah.
But now it's more irrational, like in the sense that it's almost more irrational in the sense that I will have days when I look in the mirror and I see like a massive scar. Say the other day there was a scar draping down, coming down here, pulling my face down, and I could see it, and it was there visually. And every time I kept looking back, it was still there. And it's like seeing these things that aren't there. And, you know, and I'm then turning to Natalie saying, oh, what's this? You know, there's something, this is on my face, or I've got these blemishes and these marks and these things. And she's there telling me, you know, that's not there. it's not there. You know, it's not, it doesn't exist. And as soon as I kind of get myself to maybe a calm level, or I try and distract myself away from it, it will disappear. But then something else will rear its head later in the day. And I've kind of, I'm getting older all the time, but it's one of these things that I've realized it's just a part of me. Unfortunately, it's a tiny, broken, fragmented part of my head that I can't fix. No amount of CBT when I was younger, no amount of therapy and stuff has been able to fix it. But by talking about things, by opening up about things, by kind of putting myself in a vulnerable position sometimes, especially on a stage, I do it all the time. I have no qualms about sitting on a stage in front of thousands of people. I've done it tons of times and talking about the most intimate, emotional details, purely because I want to help anyone else that has stuff that they're keeping hidden to feel like, do you know what? If this guy is sat here in front of all these people opening up about all this stuff, then I can talk to my friend, or I can talk to my mum or my dad, and I can say, I'm feeling this and I'm feeling this. And I, and I kind of like, over the years, regardless of how many people I'm playing to with a show or anything, I've just had this very conscious thing in my head of, I want to help people realize that there's no shame in having an imperfection, or having some element to you that you feel is hard to cope with on a daily basis. And so that's why every little aspect of Brightr, really, I mean, Brightr was born of me wanting to cathartically cope with not doing music anymore. So I was writing songs to cope with that. It was born of that, and then every single lyric that went into the first record, everything is very introspective with the first record. It's all about me trying to cope with the situation I was in and pull past it. And I suppose as well with my second record with Two Sides that I put out last year, every song on that record is about dealing with historical childhood matters that are unfortunately threatening, or not are, but were threatening to derail my adult life, because you worry that the person you were, or like the stuff that's happened to you as a child, will rear its head through into adulthood, and then you will then put that onto your children. And I guess so, every aspect of Brightr has always been about mental health. It's always been all the lines about, me being gloomy emo pop and all this sort of stuff. All those things has been to kind of put the idea of gloom and sadness and melancholic vibes in the air, but not as like a, look at me, I'm so dark and gothic. It's more like in a sense of, look at me, I'm a big guy, covered in tattoos, beard, quite confident, quite bold, quite brash, but I have emotions and I can cry and I can feel those emotions, and I will feel those emotions in front of people anytime, if that helps other people to realize that they don't need to hide who they are and they can just be strong individuals. I guess that's the whole thing, really.
Wow. Yeah. That's I don't know. I'm lost for words on that, because it's not very often you'll come across somebody that will happily open up about his past and how they deal with their mental health and all that. So, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I do apologize. I'm quite speechless about that. But no, all of that, and I'm glad you came out the other end. It's nice to see that all the stuff you've been through, you have been able to turn it around by putting it into songs. And I don't know. Like I said, I'm just speechless, because, like I said, nobody's ever really opened up that much to me, and
Yes.
it's appreciated that and again, for doing this as well, speaking about your mental health on here is great. So I really do thank you for that. because there are a lot of people who do have mental health. I want to say, is problems the right word? I don't know, because if I sort of said, "Oh, you got mental health problems," I'd be a bit like, "It's not really a problem. It's, I don't know," but yeah, there's a lot of people who don't like to talk about it because it's almost like they could be afraid of getting judged, or they just don't feel like they can speak to somebody, when really there probably is a lot of people out there who would rather listen to you.
Yeah. Well, I posted the other day, because obviously it's been Mental Health Awareness Week, and I think, because I read something the other day, I read a quote, someone had written something, and it said, I've probably got it completely wrong, but I wrote it within my post, saying like, I would rather spend hours hearing you talk to me about your problems or your issues than have someone tell me how amazing you were.
Yeah.
You know, type of, suicide rate amongst men of our age group, really our age range, is so high. And I've had friends who have unfortunately gone down that path, and I have had times throughout my life when I have considered that to be an option. And I think ultimately people, men, women, children, they worry about opening up about things because society has made mental health be seen as this weakness. Like, if you admit in some issues or some anxieties, it's seen as a weakness because, oh, look, there's the person with mental health issues, and now they're being pumped full of pills. And the fact is, I work in mental health support work, and some of the best people I've ever met in my life have been people that I've been supporting, people that I've been looking after, and people I've been helping through a journey of recovery. Be that through medication, therapy, just giving life goals, just giving activities and things to keep people busy, and just seeing people go through from starting at one really bad extreme and coming through the other side into making their lives amazing. I've seen that so many times. And some of the most incredible people I've met, are completely under the cosh with mental health issues. But it's like I've said so many times when I've just been chatting to my wife, or anyone in general, really, my colleagues at work, every single person has mental health issues somewhere. Every single person is on the spectrum of mental health issues somewhere. We all have something that we worry about. We all have anxieties, be those, image-based, or be them like, future-based. People worry about things they're going to achieve. I was only speaking with a friend of mine the other day, and this whole situation with COVID and being locked down has made so many people fear death and worry about death and worry about leaving their kids, or worry about losing their job or anything. All these anxieties that have come about. And I think, that is always, you're only a few harsh life knocks away from having mental health issues, like, a bad failed relationship, losing a child, in utero, or like losing a job, or, you're only a short step away from something that could be completely derailing. And so I think the fact that society has built up this mad wall against mental health, and this crazy stigma of like people just, oh, look, you're nuts if you've got something going on, and you've got to be firm and strong and never show emotion, especially amongst men. It's sad. And I'm glad that in the last few years we've, people have really been trying hard to raise awareness of mental health, to raise awareness that mental health can be just as disabling as physical health, if more sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm glad that it's become so prominent, because one of the major things I've always tried to instill with my son, I mean, he's only 2.5, but I want, when he can really understand things, I want to encourage him to show his emotions. I want to encourage him to be strong and bold, but at the same time, I want to encourage him to be open and like vulnerable sometimes. You know, there's no shame in being vulnerable. There's no shame in showing who you are. I mean, I love my dad to bits, but my dad was very shut off and very hard when I was growing up. And I don't remember. I remember 2 times when I was a child being hugged by my dad, but I always knew that he was proud of me for various achievements and stuff. But it wasn't until I hit an age older where I was so in tune with mental health and so in tune with my mental health and so in tune with my job that I turned to him one day and I just, you know, we met up for dinner, me and my parents, and I just hugged him instinctively because I hug all my friends, you know, and I'm very close with my friends. I'm very tactile with my friends. And I just hugged my dad, and the look of shock on his face, because he's a big bloke, big hard bloke. I mean, he's a lot smaller than me, so it was easy for me to overpower him. But the look of shock on his face, and I remember sort of gauging it and saying to, you know, I said to him, you know, why don't we hug? You know, there's no shame in it. I said, you've always hugged Beth, like my sister. I said, you've always hugged Beth, but you've never really hugged me and like my brother. And his kind of response, I guess, it was kind of like what had just been taught into him. So it wasn't like he was against being close to us. It was just that was the done thing.
Yeah.
Now we hug all the time. There's this closeness because we talked about it, because we broached the situation. When both of my dad's parents, two of my grandparents, tragically passed away within a couple of months of each other a few years back now, and you know, I saw my dad cry openly and feel emotion at the funerals, and that was this huge thing because we'd never seen it, never seen him react, never seen him feel something like that. But I remember feeling immensely proud because he got in touch with his emotions right at the right time, right before a huge thing that would threaten to completely derail his mental health if he didn't feel the emotions of it. And, you know, I was almost sort of trying to help him and coach him through the whole situation as a son and as a mental health professional. It's incredibly close to my heart, really. Just the idea of just people being open about things and talking about things. You know, doesn't matter how big or small you might be, how scary or whatever you might be. You know, everybody can talk about stuff. You know?
Yeah. I mean, it's it's something that I've always tried to encourage, like especially with family and friends and like my followers. I've always tried to encourage people if they need someone to chat to. Please don't hesitate to message me. If you know me personally, message my personal profile. If you know me through wrestling, message my page. I'd rather listen to somebody than find out that something bad's happened. You know? And I think the more people speak up, the lot better. The better it's going to be. The better everything will be. So yeah, thank you for being really open about it, man. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, that's cool.
And to end on a high note, you're going to sing us a little song. One of your songs, aren't you?
You wanted me to play Clearly More in the Room, I'm right?
Yeah, that's right. So when you're ready, that's going to be our outro, and then we'll say our goodbyes when he's finished. When you're ready, Laurie.
Cool, man. I'll just check them in tune.
Yep.
Oh, I've been talking for so long that I gotta get myself in the zone. Right, cool. Whew. Sure, I've had it before. A breakdown, they calling me shaking. My muscles stuck in the moment. You tell me I can make it so. Anyone that you got me missing. You found that I'm older. Lately I found the comfort thinking about. No, na 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 na. Hey, yo, yeah, people. really changes when you fall as you are. From the every time, stepping apart of me to find hope. Something building up, till you see what you're making a part and be who you are tonight. Even if things get to go right, all the acting down to make you decide to without me, hey, God, deny the right to myself, God, deny the right, deny the right. There we go.
Nice one, man.
Oh, thanks.
So is there anything else you would like to give a shout out to?
Obviously, yeah, the show next Saturday. I'm doing a randomly last minute. I'm doing a live set today, but obviously you're putting this out in what, a week?
I might put it out like tonight, or be next week, this week, whatever.
Cool. I'm going to be releasing. Oh yeah, I should say about that. I'm going to be releasing two new songs on the same day. Just by pure coincidence. I basically am putting out one song on a compilation that's going up from some Italian friends, an Italian label. I'm putting out a compilation for raising money for environmental awareness. And that's, I think, yeah, that's on the 5th of June. And then I'm also part of another compilation for some friends in America who are putting out a fundraising compilation to raise money for their new venue or their new sort of arts center that they're trying to raise up for. It's like a community center to help young people get into music. And both of those compilations go out on the 5th of June from two separate band camps and places. So it basically means two new Brightr songs are going to be out and released on the same day, but it's a bit of a treasure hunt to go to one, get that one, and then go somewhere else. So that's kind of cool. So if people are getting into my stuff and want to have some new stuff and want a bit of an internet adventure, then they can go and hunt around and find those two new tracks. Because, yeah, they just happen to be going out on the same day as my daughter's birthday. So that's going to be really fun.
Nice. Awesome. So this is the outro now. So this was, I'm pointing that way, but I think I got to point this way because of the gym. That has been Laurie from Brightr.
Yeah.
And I've been CueBall.